Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chapple Show. So are we seeing the death of Snapchat? We're going to be talking about that along with the Trump tax reform, McDonald's robots, a new treatment to prevent vision loss, our stock market winners and losers of the day, along with some YouTube policy changes that I'm going to rant about, along with and talk about how it might affect the creators that you watch, including myself. So anyways, let's get started with this giant Snapchat story. So on the business end, Snapchat has been one of the worst performing stocks of the entire year. They're down 34% since their IPO in March, I believe around March 6th. And so why the stock has been down is because they haven't been growing as a user base. I'm going to get to that in a second. So why this is a big story today is because Instagram stories, you know, essentially the ripoff of Snapchat that is included in the Instagram app and was implemented sometime about 6 to 12 months ago, they have reached a daily active user count of 250 million people. That is a lot. And that's just the people that use the Instagram stories. We're not counting for the 700 million plus users that actually use Instagram in general every single day. And so why this is important is because Snapchat only has 166 million daily active users. So Instagram stories has it's closing in on doubling the amount of users that Snapchat has, and it does the exact same function. Apart from the fact that Snapchat has the filters, right? The cool filters that aren't necessarily in Instagram yet. That's the only difference. And so what does this mean from a business perspective? What does this mean from a consumer perspective? I'll just give you some numbers here. So Instagram Stories has 250 million daily active users. In January, they had 150 million daily active users. So they have gained 100 million active users daily over the past 6 months or so, which is about 16 million new users, daily active users per month. That is a ton. Meanwhile, for comparison, Snapchat has only had a growth of about 1 million users, 1 million daily active users per month over the past 6 months to 1 year. They've been fairly static with their growth, okay? And so that's one of the reasons why everyone's bailing on the Snapchat stock right now. And that's also one of the reasons why Snapchat, in my opinion, might be getting discontinued and going the way of Vine, potentially in the future. I'm going to get to that in a second here. So Instagram has 700 million daily active users, and the Instagram stories, it was a simple implementation, right? You guys have seen it. It's just right at the very top of the app. Pretty much, you know, as soon as they put it out, you noticed that it was there and you probably clicked on it at least once, right? And so they have a massive advantage because they have a larger user base that they were able to just pretty much distribute this portion of their product to. And Snapchat is all about this one thing, this one 5 to 10 second video. Meanwhile, Instagram's got, you know, a 30-second video. They've got Instagram Live. Meanwhile, oh, here's another announcement they had too, is that Instagram Live videos will be partially archived for a specified amount of time so people can watch them even after they are live. And so that's another big feature today that came out recently. I think today or yesterday. And so pretty much what we're seeing here is that every single week, Snapchat just keeps getting hit and hit and hit by Instagram. Instagram's just this colossus that's owned by Facebook, has such a bigger base of users, and it's just Snapchat's getting bullied right into the ground. They might see negative user growth pretty soon, for all I know. They could. And so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about today. So Snapchat had a $100 million lifeline that was given to them yesterday or a few days ago. I forget when I talked about this, from Time Warner Cable, that gave them $100 million to essentially produce some shows and do some ads over the next 2 years. And that lifeline it doesn't even look like a lifeline right now. It's like they're patching like a sinking boat with like duct tape. I don't know if you guys have seen people do that in videos before, like the Mythbusters. It just doesn't work, okay? And Snapchat right now, unless they innovate somehow, I'm open to their innovation, but unless they innovate somehow, we're going to be seeing the death of Snapchat. And for those of you that aren't really business people, Snapchat hasn't made any money yet. Snapchat has not made a profit yet, even though they have 166 million users daily. And as of right now, I mean, their user growth has gone down from like what 5 million a month to, or sorry, it was like what 5 million a month to 4 million to 3 million to 2 million to 1 million. And we're just seeing the death of Snapchat right now. So I don't know if this is a good time to invest in them or not, because everyone's so down on them like myself. But when you're up against this colossus of Facebook that owns Instagram, I mean, there's not much you can do. Snapchat's a $20 billion company, and they're up against Facebook, which is multiple hundreds of billions of dollars in Facebook and Instagram. So anyways, that's my opinion on Snapchat. And here's what I want to ask you guys. Here's a question for the fan base, for everyone watching. What do you guys think of Snapchat versus Instagram stories? What do you guys use? I mean, I much rather prefer Instagram stories. I don't even go on Snapchat. I attempted using it twice, and I just didn't really see much of a point to it. So what do you guys think? What do you like better? Do you guys like Snapchat? Do you guys like Instagram stories? And what do you use more? And what do you think will be the bigger thing, the bigger product, the bigger company in 2 years? Leave your comment down below. I'd like to hear what you guys think. So that is the big story of today for business. Now there's one other thing I wanted to mention though that is also a big story too. We're going to cover a bunch of other stuff too. But I have made a bunch of tax videos I probably made about 5 or 10 over the past year on my channel, and I've talked about how to decrease your taxes. I've talked about a little bit about tax reform and lowering taxes and the Laffer curve and so on. But people are a little bit confused about the Trump tax reform that's been in the news recently, and what it means for the average person, what it means for the economy. And so I'm going to break down for you what this actually does here. And so I have open, like the Trump administration actually has a PDF, which you can go to on their website, but I'll summarize it for you guys. So if you are a single filer of a tax return and you make less than $25,000 per year, you don't have to pay taxes. That's part of this tax reform, okay? So $25,000 or less, you don't pay any taxes. Or if you're married and make less than $50,000, no taxes. You don't even have to file. I believe that someone said that all you have to do is write a one-page report and it says like I win, but I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't say that on here. So anyways, if you don't have to pay taxes, okay? If you're not making a lot of money for minimum wage, that's why this is so big. And I'm going to talk about also how Trump's tax reform, it's very, very good for the middle class in terms of keeping money in your pocket, and it's not too good for rich people. People think that it's a big tax break for rich people. I mean, I guess it is a little bit, but he's closing out some loopholes here. So we're going to go over the other income brackets too. So if you're a single filer, you make between $25,000 and $50,000, then you only have to pay 10% in income tax and 0% in dividends in capital gains. That is freaking massive. That's one of the reasons why the stock market is really so artificially inflated right now. It's because of these changes right here. 0% on capital gains and dividends to the middle class. That's what that is. And so massive tax reform. So in that also, those numbers apply to also married people making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. I mean, it's just such a massive, massive tax reform. And people that are single filers that are making between $50,000 and $150,000 per year, you're seeing a 20% income tax with a 15% capital gains and dividends tax. That's a little bit of a change. It's down for what, 5 or 10%. And the very top income tax bracket is 25%. Those that are making 150 grand and up, you will pay 20% in capital gains and dividends. So this is just a massive, massive overhaul. I mean, we're talking massive, massive tax cuts. However, he balances this. He's taking away a lot of the tax revenue, but he's also bringing some in. He's giving corporate holidays. So he's reducing corporate taxes for companies like Apple and Google that have money overseas, like hundreds of billions of dollars overseas. And he's pretty much saying to them, hey, I will give you a one-time tax break. Okay, instead of charging you 35% like the corporate tax is right now, I'm going to charge you 10% if you bring all of that money back over here. So that's going to pump in, tens of billions of dollars in tax revenue back into the economy. He's also closing tax loopholes and tax havens for the very, very, very wealthy people, the people that can hide their money overseas and in the Cayman Islands and stuff. He's going to try to close those loopholes so that, sure, they'll be paying less income tax because I think the top income tax bracket in the US is about 40%. So he's reducing that to 25%. However, he's preventing ways for people to get under that 25% line, right, for the top tax bracket. So I know a lot of the people that are making $1 million a year or more, they'll pay 8% per year in taxes, or 5%. I think Mitt Romney paid like 10%. He was making millions of dollars per year. And so he's trying to close those loopholes while still reducing the basic income tax. I think I like this plan. I'm not an American, but I do like it. He's also cutting a bunch of government funded programs. I don't know how I feel about that. So he says that it's revenue neutral. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. We will see. But why this is important is because it's being implemented this year. Mike Pence just came out and said it's being implemented this year, by the end of this year, probably in the fall sometime, maybe before then. That's when they expect this to all go through, and probably with little to no changes because they have majority government. So anyways, this is going to affect, let's see, 42 million households won't have to pay any income tax. So it'll save 42 million households about $1,000 to $2,000 per year in taxes, making them pay $2,000 down to $0, which is massive for people that are making minimum wage or near the poverty line. I mean, $1,000. Imagine having an extra $100 to $200 a month in your pocket. Now all of a sudden you don't have to worry about feeding your kids. That's what this is about here. And so that's the positive of this. People are going to say, oh, this is just a massive tax cut for all the rich people. It is, and it isn't. It's just a tax cut for everyone. I think this will benefit people at the very bottom more than anything, potentially. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this, actually. Because for those people that are just struggling to get by, that get an extra $100 or $200 a month, this is going to be massive. It could change their entire lives. I mean, I always see those documentaries about people that don't know if they're going to be able to pay for gas. And sometimes they have to walk kilometers and kilometers to work because they don't have money to pay for gas, and they have to wait 3 days for their paycheck. It's going to be massive for those people. Meanwhile, it will also, I mean, let's face it, it'll probably save the very top income earners. It'll probably save them a lot of money as well. However, I always think about the 40 million people at the bottom versus the 500,000 at the top that it might help. So that's my opinion on this. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of this tax reform? Do you guys like it? Do you guys not like it? How will it affect you? And so on. So I wanted to get that out of the way because there was some confusion when I talked about how the stock market is artificially inflated right now by Trump's proposed tax reform, and people don't really understand why that is. Well, it's because people are going to have thousands of dollars every single year to spend or to save or to invest and so on, which usually pumps up business activity and the economy as a whole. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So I want to talk next about McDonald's. I've made a video on this separately called The Robot Economy, about how there was this case about last year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where I went into a McDonald's and they usually almost always had 3 to 4 cashiers working there taking my order. And I noticed they only had 2. Why was this? Because there was 4 electronic ordering kiosks that you ordered from, and there was only really 1 cashier working, and there was 1 person that would bring the food from the cooks up front. That was it. And why this is really big today is because McDonald's announced that 2,500 stores will begin this electronic kiosk ordering program, along with the one that I was in. The one that I saw was probably a pilot program, but 2,500 stores will have this implemented by the end of this year, fully, like at least 4 of these things in there, which is absolutely massive. In a bunch of ways, it's not good for, if you think of the economy as a whole, like there's going to be less, cashier jobs. However, it's going to save McDonald's a lot of money, right? They aren't going to need to hire as many people. And so obviously that's shot the McDonald's stock up about 1%. I believe 1% today alone, about 0.6% today, which is massive. And their stock's just been going up and up and up. It's actually kind of scary. If you look at their chart, their 1 year chart, I mean, it's it's going way up. For a company that's been around 60 years, they're seeing a lot of growth in the past year. Usually people invest in McDonald's because it's a sign that a stock market crash is coming or a recession is coming because they are a recession-proof company. They make just as much money during a recession as they ever will because people, all of a sudden, they have to go from Whole Foods buying $4, $5, $6 meals to, they have to do $1 meals. And who does that? McDonald's. McDonald's does that. So anyways, they're implementing that. That was big news today. Their stock is up 25% this year, which is insane. Mobile ordering is going to be available in 14,000 locations by mid next year. Mobile ordering. So again, that's another thing. People aren't going to need to take orders as much. And let's see here. They're announcing that they're going to make some more high-end burgers and make an attempt at that. Some high-end quarter pounders. That was big news today. Also, the last thing I wanted to mention, why this may not affect their bottom line too much, the devil's advocate here, is that about 70% of McDonald's orders and revenue and food orders come through the drive-thru, right? And so, you can't really replace the drive-thru people with kiosks yet. I mean, it won't be too efficient. People don't want to get their, hands wet. The machine's going to be outside and so on. So it's not going to affect their bottom line as much as most people think. However, it is interesting to think about. Like, we're switching over to a robot economy. We're switching over to a robot economy where we're having robots are literally taking our orders now. It's actually happening. It's actually happening. So what do you guys think about that? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I'm very indifferent on that. I mean, as a teenager, I did have that little bit of a fear as a young teenager. I didn't want to talk to other people. So the fact that I can just punch in orders now, and it's probably going to be more efficient too. And they'll probably screw up my order a lot less. I like that part of it. However, I don't really care too much as a consumer of McDonald's. I don't really go eat there too much. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. But what do you guys think? As a consumer and as an investor, do you think that this is a good thing, a bad thing? Leave it in the comments below. So anyways, we're going to get to the stock market winners and losers today. We're also going to talk about this company that launched a drug which prevents vision loss. So we're going to get to that. So one of the biggest stock winners today was this pharmaceutical company called Regeneron. I believe it's called Regeneron. And so they're up 5% today. They're one of the biggest gainers of today. I believe they are the biggest gainer of today. And so why was the stock up so much today when most of the stock market was pretty bad, to be honest? Was because they made a drug which prevents macular degeneration. For those of you that don't know, macular degeneration is a fancy way of saying you lose vision as you get older. Usually it's a genetic cause, but your sight gets much, much worse as you get older. And so that's what macular degeneration is. And so there's this report came out from a rival company of Regeneron that was comparing their drug to Regeneron's drug, and it showed that both of them worked really well. Both of them worked for more than 55% of patients. It stopped vision loss over the course of 1 year, I think, or 8 months or 1 year, that is absolutely ridiculous. And it was with a large sample of 1,800 people. And that was really positive today. And I always like to talk about these stories. It's because we're seeing good things. Although here's the drawback of this, actually. Here's where the evil, what people think the capitalist evil part of this is. So the rival company was called I forget the rival company was called, but essentially the rival company stated that the patient only needed to take their drug once every 12 months, okay? And so their stock went up 1 or 2%. It was just a little bit. Regeneron, the patient has to use their drug every 8 months. And Regeneron's stock went up 5%. Why is this? It's because investors think that, okay, well, people will have to take this drug more often, so we're going to bet on this company because they will end up making more money and buying more of this drug. So that's the downside of this. I mean, I'm all for capitalism, love capitalism. I do love a lot of socialist aspects and so on, but this is one of the parts that I don't like. You're betting on a less efficient pharmaceutical drug that's going to cost the patient more, but it's more valuable because the patient does have to pay more. and the insurance companies have to pay more. So that's one aspect that I don't like about it, but they're a big winner today. Regeneron, their stock's up 5%. Obviously another winner is McDonald's. We already talked about them today. Alexus Pharmaceuticals. So this is another random one where people just listen to the news, and that's the reason the stock shoots up. And sorry, not Alexus, it's Alexion Pharmaceuticals. My apologies. So there was just some news came out in the past 4 or 5 days, and partially today, that, well, they hired a chief financial officer who made a giant speech about how, he's going to be able to take this company to 10% growth or more, every single year. Like, okay there, buddy. And so over the course of years too. So 10% a year over year, a sustainable 10% growth. And I think he's crazy, but that pumped the stock up a little bit over the last few weeks. And then today, the CEO of that company bought $1 million worth of shares in the company. And so what this usually means from a beginner investor perspective, when a CEO buys shares in a company, it's usually a signal to investors that the CEO has some insider information that the stock is going to go way up and that they're betting on the company in the medium to long term. So that's the only reason why I was able to find that the stock was up a lot today, was because the CEO just freaking bought $1 million worth of shares today. That's it. So what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of CEOs buying more shares of their company? And it's a little bit of like, it's not insider trading, but it's a little bit of insider trading, I guess, to be honest. So what do you guys think of that? Do you think that CEO should be allowed to buy and sell their stock at will whenever they want to? What do you guys think? So anyways, we're going to be moving on to, those are the stock market winners. We're going to be talking about the losers, and boy, there was a lot of losers today, but we're going to talk about 2 specific ones and one sector as a whole, which got crapped on today. So loser, Chipotle. Oh, Chipotle. A place that I have personally never been to, but I've heard that their food is good as long as you're okay with going to the bathroom a lot over the following 12 to 24 hours. But Chipotle, their stock was down roughly 7%. Now we still have a few minutes left till closing here, but 7.3% they're down right now. And so why did this happen today? And it's really funny. It's really funny why this happened today. So there was 2 things. One is not funny, which is they decreased their sales estimate for the quarter just slightly. I mean, it was almost negligible, and people always freak out when the company does that. Oh, they're not going to be making as much money this quarter. Everyone freaks out. Sell, 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 right? But the main thing was that they gave a message out to their investors, the people who are already invested in the company. They said that they're going to add about 0.3% to their total expenses this year in order to acquire more customers and to get more people at the restaurant and eating their food, and yeah, just to hopefully increase the top line revenue. And so 0.3% in expenses in most companies, like who cares? That's very negligible. But for food companies specifically, so I've worked for a mentor who owned tons of companies, but he also owned a medium-sized restaurant chain. He was the owner, founder, creator, still is, and he has about 10 to 15 stores right now. And he was talking about like the profit margins for restaurants, especially if it's a fast food or low end, like just, you're in and out within 20 minutes kind of thing, or 10 minutes, 10, 20, 30 minutes, that the margins of those places, we're talking like it's between 1 and 10% profit margins. And usually it's 1 to 3% for a lot of these places, especially the very low cost places. We're talking maybe even under 1% sometimes, like McDonald's. And so the profit margins are so small. So a place like Chipotle, which is kind of it's a fast food place essentially, right? It's a fast food place where they have margins of 1 to 3 to 5 to 10%. A 0.3% in expenses is a pretty massive hit to their earnings, to their profit margin. And so investors, they rightfully so, 0.3% is a pretty big hit. And so the stock dropped 7% today, meaning that their market cap went down over $1 billion, about $1 billion today. So they were at about a 13.4 billion cap, and now they're at about a 12.5 cap, somewhere around there. So you guys can do the math on that. So they've dropped 7% today. They are the biggest loser today of the stock market. Also, I did mention Snapchat. Snapchat's down 3%, although we're near closing, so I should update that. About 2.8% as of right now. A few minutes till closing. Actually, this is a little bit lagging for whatever reason. This one's lagging a little bit behind. So they're down 3.1%, Snapchat. So they're another big loser. Now, the biggest loser today is a sector as a whole, in my opinion, energy. And so energy, I'm talking oil, I'm talking gas, any sort of natural resources coming from the ground, right? Energy companies. So they're down, 1.25% as a whole. So the big stocks, we're talking Exxon is down about 0.5% today. ExxonMobil, a giant corporation, $218 billion market cap here. No, more than that actually, $345 billion market cap. The revenue is about $220 billion. Suncor is down, a giant Canadian company. Suncor is down about 2% today. Shell is down about 2.3% today. All the energy stocks are down. So why am I talking about this again? Because I am seriously looking at buying some energy stocks by the end of this week, and I would today, but I don't want to move the money around right now. And so I'll just wait for I'll use my next YouTube paycheck to at least look into some oil stocks. You can check that out. You can check out my breakdown stock market program in the link below. Every time I buy a stock now, I'm just going to do a breakdown of how I actually look at them and research them and what I'm looking at, what's my portfolio, so on. How did my stock do this week? That's all going to be in my stock market program. Links in the description below. And so, yeah, oil's down. So price of oil is down today too. I think it's worth looking into some oil stocks right now, guys. I do think it's a good opportunity. You don't have to, now take my advice with a grain of salt. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a fiduciary for you guys. But in my opinion, I personally am looking at oil stocks right now. I don't know if I'm going to buy them or not. But I'm looking into them because oil is down so much right now and it has to rebound. Oil is somewhat cyclical. Now, the other thing too about oil is that I always see these headlines, and I think one of the reasons why people aren't investing in oil and coal and gas companies right now is because you see headlines all the time about how, I saw one yesterday or 2 days ago about how there are now more solar energy jobs than there are coal jobs in, I think it was the United States or UK or London or England or somewhere around there, some country or state. And you see those headlines all the time, and I think people are somewhat bearish on oil companies. But I kind of see it as, sure, they're probably not going to, over the next 100 years, renewable energy is going to outperform oil and coal and all those, dirty energy companies, right? But it's still going to be there. It's still a staple of the industry. People thought we'd run out of oil by 2020 in natural gas, and we're not even close to that. I mean, especially since we developed fracking, which is, I know, environmental consequences. I'm not a fan of that. But especially because of fracking, and we're able to get some more oil from the ocean and stuff now too. I mean, oil is not going anywhere, guys. It's not going anywhere, at least for the next few decades. Maybe we'll see what happens in the next 15 years or so, 15, 20 years, if things change. But as of right now, in the next 10 years, oil's just going to be around, okay? So the very last thing I want to talk about is actually, we'll cover the big stocks today because you guys like to hear that stuff. So we're going to cover the big stocks and the indexes. So Dow Jones is down 0.3%. Amazon's down 0.26%, Google's down 0.6%, S&P 500 down 0.67%, Nasdaq's down almost 1%, Tesla up, not even going to mention, Nvidia was up about, when I started this video, they were up almost 1%, and now they're actually down about 0.1%, so I guess that they're neutral today. Apple's down 1%. Ooh, some of my utility companies that I invested in made some money today again, so that's good. Facebook's down 0.4%, Netflix down 0.88%, McDonald's is up, we talked about them, Walmart is up, Twitter is down. So that is kind of the summary of the big stocks that you guys like to hear about. Last thing I want to talk about. The very last thing I want to talk about is this YouTube policy change that has come out in the past few days. And I just want to talk about it because I had this affect me yesterday. Or sorry, not yesterday, it was on Friday, I believe. So for those of you that don't know, YouTube makes these policy changes all the time, and there was that YouTube adpocalypse, okay? The YouTube adpocalypse, it didn't really affect me too much. It did for 1 week. For 1 week, I essentially didn't make any money from YouTube. I mean, my revenue was down like 90% for 1 week, and then they kind of realized like, okay, this guy's actually not making terrorist content, so maybe we should monetize him. So They pretty much announced that, okay, their AI is being used to take down terrorist videos. Good, 100% agree with that. There shouldn't be terrorism videos on YouTube. I disagree with that. So good job, YouTube. They also said that there's an increase in, they're hiring more people to look at certain channels and videos and flag those videos if they're, propaganda related or just inappropriate in general. Okay, I'm kind of iffy on that one. But here's the thing which is affecting most YouTube creators and here's how it affected me, okay? So they announced that they're gonna be taking a much tougher stance on videos that don't clearly violate their policies. Now, their policies are very, very vague, and so this is what it's a little bit worrisome. They gave the examples of inflammatory religious content and supremacist content. Like, okay, I agree with that. You shouldn't maybe monetize videos that are all about supremacy and one race being better than any other, right? Okay, I get it, 100% cool with that. Here's where the gray area comes in, is that they also said that any video that can be found offensive, debated, or is an attack on someone else, whether they deserve it or not, whether it's someone like Osama bin Laden or something like that, and you're just disrespecting them or anything like that, or any sort of touchy subject, any sort of political subject, that could be demonetized. I mean, if the Republicans or right-wing people are offended by someone talking about some socialist policies or about how they hate Trump, that could be demonetized, okay? But if you're also talking about how, free healthcare and a lot of left-wing stuff and how that's not good and how you don't like that stuff, you can also be demonetized. And so if people are offended essentially now, you can get demonetized on YouTube, which is, it's unfortunate. I know most of my content, 99% of it, I don't even talk about politics, right? But here's the deal, is that the one time I was going to talk about politics was actually on Friday, and I didn't do it. I did not do it because I didn't want to get demonetized or get any sort of strike or anything towards me. And so here's what I was going to talk about. I'm not going to get into detail about opinions, but here's essentially what happened and why I didn't make this video or talk about it at all. And so it was going to be in a business news video, and pretty much there was a claim that came out from Michelle Obama that said that Apple wasn't hiring enough women and that she would boycott them essentially unless they hired more women. And so there was the implication that Apple was being sexist. And so I was going to talk about how there's a lot of choices involved, a lot of variables about that, and try to be a devil's advocate and play both sides. But I didn't make that video because you're talking about a left-wing politician, Michelle Obama. You're talking about defending or essentially being a devil's advocate for Apple, who 70% of their company is male. All right? And so you're talking about capitalism over here on the right end, and you're talking about democratic, liberal thinking over here. And those are both very touchy subjects that I couldn't touch on. And I was just going to give my opinion about, those things. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to get flagged or demonetized or offend anyone right now, which is really sad. I'll probably talk about this stuff more in the future and see what happens. But that's one of the things, like why it's changing YouTube, why these policies are changing YouTube. I was going to include that in one of my videos, but I couldn't. And so we're seeing this, like, people that I watch, like H3H3 Productions, who is a comedy channel. All they do is make jokes of other YouTubers essentially, and make parodies of other channels and so on. All their videos are demonetized now. They're making what, it was 13% or 15% of what they did before. I mean, so they had to go onto Patreon and get sponsors and so on. So there was that. We're seeing that get hit with PewDiePie, had that, Nazi joke, and then everyone, the Wall Street Journal and stuff, you guys have heard that before. I'm not going to get into that. Philip DeFranco, he gets demonetized for just simply talking about political news. So, I mean, this is the stuff that we're talking about right now. Meanwhile, here's the one thing I don't like about it is that YouTube is swayed towards a liberal thinking, okay? Now, I have no problem with liberal. I don't even know where I stand. I think I'm probably a little bit more conservative because, I'm a business person, but I have a lot of liberal aspects that I love too. So they don't demonetize people like the Young Turks, who are pro-liberal, anti-Trump, and so on, they don't get demonetized, but people like Steven Crowder, I watch both. I love the Young Turks, I love Steven Crowder, I watch both of them. I try to get both sides of the argument. But meanwhile, Steven Crowder, on touchy subjects, he gets demonetized. Or Rebel Media, they get demonetized because they're too far right. But meanwhile, people too far left, like feminists, like super feminists, I'm completely good with feminism, love feminists, all that stuff. But the ones that are very off on the deep end of that stuff, hating all men, they don't get demonetized, right? So that's kind of the problem that I've seen with YouTube a little bit. That's just my experience. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? This is just from what I've seen anecdotally from people talking about their own demonetization. And so, what do you guys think about this? Do you think that it's a good thing, their policy changes? I understand it from a YouTube perspective. I do. I understand why YouTube's doing it. It's their business. They get to do whatever they want. They gotta bring in ad-friendly stuff for advertisers. I would do the same thing if I were them, if I were running that company, because YouTube's just going to grow in the long run, as it always has, right? Regardless of whether it's ad-friendly or not, it's going to grow. So why not make it ad-friendly and hopefully increase revenue? 100% get that. It's just, you know, YouTube isn't what it was when I have been on YouTube. For those of you that don't know, I've made 5 YouTube channels, and I've been on here since 2008. I was making music videos in 2008, and I've actually made 4 channels that have gotten over 1 million views each, specifically, and they've all been in different genres. So I'm good at making mid-level YouTube channels like this one, business oriented. I've made science one, I've made a gaming one, and I've made a music one. I've also made one more, I just forget what it was. But anyways, so I've been on here a while. YouTube's not what it was, but you know what? It's great. We're seeing a lot of great content, high quality content, more now than ever, which I love. So I think that's going to wrap this video up. What do you guys think of all these subjects? Leave a comment down below. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people. I'll see you guys in the next video.